Welcome to this episode of MindMeld, where we try and help you move up in life instead of just on with it. My very special guest today is Dr. Mohammed Shehu. He is a media veteran who has worked in radio, television, advertising, and on stage. He's a digital strategist, copywriter, keynote speaker, trainer, and social media practitioner. His keenest interests include social media strategy, design principles, digital transformations, and entrepreneurship. He has lived in Nigeria, Kenya, Tanzania, Botswana, and Namibia, and has worked with some of the biggest brands on the continent. He brings to the table a globalized perspective, big picture thinking, and incisive insight into building brilliant brands. Uh, Dr. Mohammed Shehu is also the youngest person in Namibia to have ever achieved a doctoral degree, and he has studied informatics. Uh, Thank you for joining me on this episode of MindMeld. And I suppose my first question is, why do you think, as a social media practitioner, why do you think it's so difficult for us to move away from a paper-based system?
Don't trust the internet, not because it has ever, screwed them over or anything. They just don't inherently trust the internet, and they still want to pay cash. They want to come to your event and pay at the door. And you tell them, guys, this would save you so much time and effort if you just paid it from the comfort of your living room. But there's this mistrust. And so that's on the one hand. On the other hand, you have people of my generation and of Generation Z going forward, and they grew up in the digital age. And so for them, the idea of paperwork or of keeping folders and files, it doesn't make sense. They were born, for all intents and purposes, in the cloud. And so they have an inherent trust of the internet and digital services and platforms. So that's one explanation, is the general divide. Another one I would venture to put out there is trust in institutional capacities. And what I mean by that is, in some countries where internet services work, it's much easier to trust it than in developing countries where digital services are usually shaky. They're not fully trustworthy. They're not compliant with any of the standards that have been set out. So one example of that would be digital or e-voting, right? So e-voting would work in a developed country because everybody trusts that the information gathered is going to be audited and is going to be processed properly. But in a lot of developing countries, people don't trust digital voting because they feel it can be manipulated. It's the exact same system, but they feel that the institutions and the institutional players behind the digital services and platforms in developing countries are not trustworthy. Therefore, the digital services themselves are not to be trusted. So that's one running theory I've got. But mostly, I would say it's a generational divide, to be honest.
Is there a way to ease people into it? Because I think maybe it's, like I said, maybe it's just too scary, right? The idea of putting your information out there, even though for someone of Generation Z or whatever, right, for them, it totally makes sense. It's got a SSL security system in place, verified by Visa, all kinds of things. But for someone that is of an older generation, is there a way to sort of like ease them into using technology better?
Well, old habits die hard. Old habits die hard, but I think if you can consistently show someone from an older generation that digital is safe, can be trusted, and it will save them time and money, then they become just as hooked, if not more, on digital services and devices and platforms than their grandkids. So, at first your grandma might not understand how WhatsApp works, but once she realizes all the cool stuff you can do with it, sending videos, sending voice notes, making WhatsApp calls without having to waste airtime, then all of a sudden that becomes an integral part of her day, because now she can use it to be in touch, to get in touch with all her relatives all over the world, whereas before she would have to write a letter manually,
right?
For example, or get on a phone call. So if you can show them the benefits of digital and that it's safe, and you do that consistently over time, then there is a possibility that you can win them over.
Right. I mean, even my dad uses WhatsApp now. I mean, he's starting with two fingers, but he's doing it, right? but it's I very rarely buy call time for texting or actually phone calls. I basically rely mostly on WhatsApp,
Yeah.
and like Skype and Zoom and all kinds of things.
Messenger. Yeah.
Yeah, Messenger, all the things are there. It's never been easy to actually communicate with people right around the world, right?
Mm.
But I think,
You,
like it's, yeah. Sorry,
you get
go.
to a point
Yeah.
where it's actually weird when you get a text.
Yeah, it is really. It's like, who would
You're like,
do this
what?
to me?
In 2019?
Yeah.
Who's still texting me? Yeah.
So yeah, but you said that it will save you time and money, and I want to add a third one to that. It will save you pay, right? Now, before we actually started interviewing, I explained or I related my experience where I was in a horrible car crash. Then I was transferred via ambulance to Windhoek, and we had to transfer via 4 ambulances. So I get to a point, and then we had to go on another ambulance, and then we get to one point, and then we had to go and so forth. Like, and every single time, look, the first time was okay, right? What is your name? Where do you live? What is your phone number? All kinds of things. Now you're in horrible pain, bleeding in the back of an ambulance. Answering these sort of questions is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
What's worse is when they get to the second ambulance, they ask the exact same questions. And I thought to myself, don't you have this information already? Why couldn't you just send this information ahead of time? If you got the information the first time round, right? Why couldn't you just digitally transmit this to the second ambulance and they could do the same rather than asking me 4 times over? And then I got to the hospital, of course, and what happens? Same questions. And I
More
thought,
paperwork.
why would you do this to me? At this point, I've lost a lot of blood. I'm in a horrible amount of pain. I don't even know who I am. My name is long forgotten. Where I live is in the cloud. I don't know what to say. And you can just think to yourself, why didn't they just repeat the information? It makes it so easy now to do away with paperwork.
Hmm. Let me ask you this. Did
Yeah.
you have your medical aid card with you at the time?
Yes. I had all my information
So
on me.
exactly. And so you would think it would be as simple as take the number on your medical aid card, run it through the system, which should be linked to the medical aid fund administrators all over the country,
Yeah.
so that it pulls your information without having to constantly ask you that. So
Yes.
if you already have that card with you, you carry it with you everywhere you go. I've got mine in the car wherever I go, exactly because I'm afraid something like that is going to happen,
Yeah.
and I'm going to end up in a public hospital. And no, I'm not about that life.
Yeah,
So I
I'm
leave
not
my
about that life.
I'm not about that life. So I leave my medical aid in the car all the time in case there's a car accident or something like that. Then the first responders can know that, okay, this guy's covered by medical aid. Take him to a private hospital.
Mm.
But you would expect them to just pull that number, and immediately all my information, where I live, who my next of kin, who to contact, should be there. You shouldn't have to ask me, who is incapacitated, what my PO box is. I don't care about that at that
Yeah,
particular point
yeah.
in time.
No, it is ridiculous. And the problem is, I don't see it getting better anytime soon. That's my perspective. I don't know how you feel about it, but we are so in love with paperwork. It seems that we find every opportunity to generate it more and more.
Yeah.
The other day I got a phone call saying, it's like, you haven't paid your bill in 3 months. Like, I haven't seen a bill in 3 months. Why don't you just email it to me? Then it would get paid immediately. It's like, then finally, a week later, I get it in the mail, and it's 3 months ago that they sent it through the mail.
The
Why don't you
one, the
just,
one,
yeah?
the one thing I've always struggled to understand is the concept of certified copies. It is so dumb that in this day and age we still deal with certified copies,
Yeah.
because we've got things like the blockchain, for example,
Mm.
digital ledgers, digital databases. It would be as simple as, if you need certain information, liaise with the institutions that generates that information, make sure there are set standards across the board in terms of data storage and processing. That way, if I give you a copy of that, you can digitally verify that it's authentic, rather than making me go all the way to the police station to get it stamped. Actually, first of all, I have to go to the photocopy shop,
Yeah.
make a copy of it, go to the police station, get that certified. There are people who are literally hired just to sit in a cubicle and stamp documents all day. And I look at them and I say, this is not a very efficient allocation of human resources, to be honest, because all of this can be done digitally. There's no need for us to be queuing to get copies certified. And this is one of those topics that really gets my goat. I'll be honest with you.
But it's true, right? But if we now look, I get the idea that maybe you don't want to get a chip in your hand to scan all kinds of things, right? But
I'm
if
all
you,
for chips.
I'm all for it. Honestly, you know, it's like if I ever get in an accident again, you can just scan a chip. I'm for it. But we can carry around ID cards and all kinds of things. We already do that. We already carry around ID cards and passports and all kinds of things. That it's no longer necessary to generate that much paperwork. Even the idea of an ID book or a passport rather is ridiculous to me. I've had 4 passports now in the last 2 years, right? Each time it costs a bunch of money. If I could just get one chip to verify my entry and exit, right, rather than a stamp, it's like, why wouldn't I do that? And let's say, and you'd never lose the chip because it would always be in you. There's never a point where it's like my passport got destroyed because it got wet, or I lost it, or my bags were stolen, or something like that.
Right.
It's like, unless they stole you a hand, you know,
or chop it off, or something.
Chop it off. It's always going to be there, and that's why even now, I mean, my God, games, online games, multiplayer, massive multiplayer online role-playing games have actually security systems in place. Like my phone, I can scan with my fingerprint to be able to access World of Warcraft, right? Why can't we do that with our banks, with our paperwork, with information to verify something? Just scan your phone. Or, you know, it's like if you don't have,
I think it's a thing also of we've always done it this way.
Right, that's the thinking.
So it's a fear of change, right? Where you're so used to receiving a physical passport. If you're a bank teller, for example, you're so used to receiving your customers' physical passports or physical IDs that the idea of not having to deal with that and just have everything happen seamlessly in the cloud scares you a little bit. Because what if it's not authentic? What if they fake it? And it's always that comes back is what if they fake it? What if someone forges a digital document? And they forget that digital verification or e-verification is a thing.
Yeah.
They're literally services that exist to verify that documents have been digitally signed by the correct institutions. And so if we can get around, it's a mentality thing, really. It all boils down to mentality. The people who are in charge, who are, you know, in power, they don't think like this. For them, it's not something that crosses their mind because we've just always done it this way.
Yeah. And people, I get the idea that you think it's not secure, right? Even though there's digital signatures, there's ways to actually verify the data, all kinds of things. You can even tie it to an IP address which goes directly to the router you've been using, right? But people forget that people copy passports all the time physically anyway, right? And the chances of that happening is much greater than a digital hacker coming in and hacking like Google security, right? Or Visa security or whatever like that. Because it takes like the entire Russian government to be able to hack one person's emails, allegedly, right? So it's, who are you?
Not to mention,
so who are you that's so important that you have to worry about that?
Not to mention, two-factor authentication is a thing, right? So you know, when you try and log into Twitter and it sends you a text message with a code that you then need to enter, you could do the same thing where you've got your chip, but maybe you need to double authenticate it with your fingerprint or with a biometric scan of your eyes. So that makes it a little bit more secure and makes it harder for someone to try and gain unauthorized access to your accounts or to your money if it's in a bank. These are things that are easily solved, but it's just we've always done it this way.
We've always done it this way. Even my bank, if I can get this thing out, whatever. Even my bank has a one-time PIN token thing, right? Where I have to have my username, my password, and then I have to verify it through a one-time PIN, right? A two-step verification program. It's not that difficult to implement.
It's not.
If you want to open this email, just get the text message or something like that. Or there's a WhatsApp message that's been sent to you for a verification process. It shouldn't be that difficult. And honestly, the technology is already there. We just have to borrow it and apply it to whatever else we need to do. There's already two-step verification. There's already biometric security systems in place. But we don't look at other people. It's like, only my ideas count. Only what I'm doing right now counts. It's like, it's like, how can we implement what Visa is doing into our immigration policies, into passport control and stuff like that? It's like, no.
Right.
Paper is king. Paper's king. It's like, and then the next thing, it rains and the roof collapses and all the paperwork is destroyed. It's like, sorry, did you not back up by cloud? I've got emails going back 12, 15 years, right? I can still retrieve because it's in the cloud.
And that's with a simple search.
That's with a simple search, right? I don't have a single scrap of paperwork that lasts more than 3 months.
I totally get you. And I think there's also a political aspect to this, right? Because when we talk about digitization, when we talk about this buzzword that's going around, the fourth industrial revolution, and the digitization and digitalization of everything and the way we do business and the way we live, there's this fear that it's going to cut jobs, right? And so when it cuts jobs, obviously you're taking away people's livelihoods. And then when election time comes, those same people who've just lost their jobs are not going to vote you in. And so you don't stay in power. And because as a politician, your first priority is to remain
in power.
Yeah. You are not going to do anything that will jeopardize your ability to get reelected. And so there are conflicting interests when it comes to the topic of digitalization, where it would provide a net positive to the way people live, but because it affects a minor few people who happen to be in power, they're never going to let that pass.
That's so true and ridiculous at the same time, right? Because that sort of mindset for anyone to have that calls himself a leader, right? And I hate using that word because politicians are definitely not leaders. They're there to play the game called politics. And
there are good ones here and there.
Oh, they are absolutely right, but they're not there for the politics. They're there for the leadership, right? So there are leaders first, politicians second. Some people are me first, politics second, everybody else fifth, fourth. There's no even gap between those. Yeah. So, yeah. And the problem is that's a very limited way of thinking, right? Because, yes, it's going to take away some jobs, but we can train you to be able to do more and get more jobs by using digital technology.
Yes.
So, but we are too damn lazy, the politicians are too damn lazy to have that sort of mindset because, like you said, we've always done it this way, right? So why mess with something that's work?
Also, not just because we've always done it this way, but I won't be around long enough. So it's like, why bother engaging in any 20, 30-year plans when, as a politician, I probably won't even be alive in that time. So it doesn't affect me. I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah. I got my house and my 50 children and, my 14 wives and whatever, it's like, I'm good. Yeah.
I'm good.
It's like, hey, have you thought maybe just for 1 second that it's not about you, right? Just consider that as a leader. Yeah.
And you can't even say, it's not about you, it's about your kids, because their kids are also good, right? And so their kids don't have to deal with paperwork in public hospital settings because they fly off to Singapore or to London or to Cape Town or Durban or Joburg to get their procedures done. They fly off to countries where things work thanks to digitization.
Yeah.
And then they're so far removed from the daily plight of people who live in their home countries.
It's really terrible. You advocating for the Namibian quality of education is second to none, but we send our children somewhere else, right? So because we don't trust the system that we're advocating for, that's just terrible. So
Do as I
yeah,
say and not as I do.
yeah, do as I say, not as I do. That's just terrible. Now, part of what you do is, I mean, you do a lot that has to do with digitization, all kinds of things, but you help people generate social media schedules because social media is difficult, right? And you have to actually stay relevant. You can't just post every 5, 10 days or once a year or something like that. You know, it's like if you want to be relevant, you have to stay relevant. Do people actually use those
Um,
things?
so okay, so let's just take a step back.
Yeah.
What I do is help companies and individuals with the social media communication strategy, right?
Right.
The scheduling is it's just one aspect of that. But at the
Right.
end of the day, you need to figure, and like I mentioned earlier on, you need to go back to the marketing aspect of it.
Yes.
So put the social media aside. The first question I'll ask you is, what's your business? What's your brand all about? What
Right.
problem are you trying to solve? Who are you talking to? What's your why? Right? Once we figured that out, then your communication strategy on social media, but also elsewhere, flows from that.
Mm.
Okay. So I wouldn't worry too much about social media content scheduling because there are lots of tools that can allow you to do that. Whether
Right.
if it's a third party tool like Hootsuite or Buffer or Planoly for Instagram and Pinterest, or if it's using, TweetDeck for Twitter and the native Facebook platforms. My concern and the brand's concern would be, is what we are posting valuable?
Mm.
Because what people get wrong is, if we can schedule out our posts in advance, then we don't have to do any work. And that's a huge, huge mistake.
Yeah. I'm all for
Huge, huge.
scheduling in advance, right? But you can't solely rely on it because sometimes things just happen, right? And if you miss it, you miss an opportunity.
To capitalize, yes.
Yeah.
And the way social media is trending to nowadays is humanity has become a premium, right?
Hmm.
Where there's so much digital noise on the web, on social media platforms. There's so much digital noise that a brand that can humanize itself, that has a human face, a human personality behind it, human interests, human values, that automatically stands out and people resonate with that. And so that's why you cannot leave your social media content strategy to automation entirely.
Mm.
You can automate the core aspects of it,
Mm.
sure, right? If it's creating filler content or talking about your products and services, but from time to time, we need to see human beings,
Yeah.
people like us on your page. You need to talk about human problems and give human solutions,
Right.
practical human solutions, because that's how people then relate to you and they go, there's actually a human being behind this profile. And it's not just a robot spewing off, dear first name type of messages.
Yeah. They're insert bracket first name. Yeah.
Email marketing
Yeah.
mistakes 101.
But that's the thing, right? Even in your emails, it has to sound like an actual person that's writing those emails, rather than just a
Absolutely.
form that you got from Google or something and you're sending it out, right? And that means, like for me, for example, I use sometimes a lot of levity, a lot of contractions, all kinds of things in my emails to indicate that I'm a human being. Like I say, do
Yes.
me a solid, right? Rather than do,
Yes.
kindly subscribe or whatever. Like it's like do me a solid. It's like I have to sound like I'm a human being because I'm the one
Yes.
writing those messages. And there's a lot, and you said this yourself, right? It's noisy out there on the internet,
Mm.
and human beings are premium. You have to be a person first and a brand second.
Second, yes.
Yeah.
I would also say that, so what you were talking about, I call it accessible English. Accessible
Yes.
language, really, but we're English speaking, so accessible English.
Yes.
And I noticed that the best type of newsletters, email newsletters that I receive, are the ones that are speaking in plain, easily
Plain, easy
understandable,
to understand,
English,
simple English. Yeah.
right? Because we can tell as customers when you are when you're engaging in company speak, where
Mm.
you're talking about formalities and memorandums of human beings don't talk about that. If you're trying to sell me something, if you're trying to have a conversation with me, then you won't use such words in conversation, right?
Mm.
You speak to me as a normal person. And so if you want to reach people more effectively, look at the way you craft your copy and your communications. And I always emphasize that. Your communications will determine whether or not people find you relatable enough to want to even take a second look at whatever it is you're selling.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking to me like a human, it shows that you're actually out to help me and my problems and help me solve my problems.
It's
But if
not
you're
just a
talking to me as
cash
a
grab.
company,
Yeah.
if you're talking to me as a company, then I know you're just trying to meet a sales quota. And then
Mm.
why should I give you my money?
But that's why there's a lot of YouTubers as well that I tend to follow, because they
Mm.
are not the biggest YouTubers on the platform or whatever, right?
Mm.
But they are the
Mm.
most human, I want to say. They
Yes.
they it's not just the sketches or whatever like that. Sometimes they do these other videos that's like, it's like, it's been a really bad week and things just happen and I'm trying to move past it, right? Well, they show me a glimpse of what it's like behind the scenes. For example, there's
Mm.
this
Mm.
one guy called Clark Kegley, I think his name is, and I follow him
Clark
on
who?
Clark Kegley,
Spell that last one for me.
Kegley, I believe.
Clark Quigley. Okay, I'll check him out.
Yeah, he also goes
He
under
does.
Clark Danger, all kinds of things. But
Okay.
but I love his way of communicating. Yes, he has his social media or like his chat box and stuff like that, right? But he also engages in human interaction. So he's got social media
Mm.
and scheduling all kinds of things, but he's
Mm.
also very human. Even in the way he writes
Mm.
his social media stuff, it's very human and
Mm.
it's very relatable, even with the
Mm.
spelling mistakes and all kinds of things, right? Um, but I love that. I don't like spelling mistakes because as an English teacher myself, it's like it's sort of like
Oh,
it hits a mark.
trust me.
But I love,
I'm with you.
yeah. But I love that it's honest and it's authentic.
Mm.
So
Mm.
even like if I go to someone like Linus Media Group, where
Mm.
they go and show stuff behind the scenes, I love that sort of stuff because it's not just content driven for the sake of
Mm.
capitalizing on your money or whatever. It's also the
Mm.
human interaction. And
Mm.
I do think that human beings, we need to get back to being human beings.
And part of that boils down to, so my philosophy of social media is success on social media comes down to putting yourself out there. You have to put yourself out there. You can't
Yeah.
hide behind brand or hide behind image or some, you know, wall or screen that you're trying to build the perfect image of who you are. You have to put yourself out there. And part of putting yourself out there is it boils down to, as Hermine would say, it's vulnerability and
Yeah.
authenticity, right? And vulnerability is actually the hook. Okay, so if you are the perfect brand, you've got such a polished image, you are like a completely polished and smooth wall. And you're trying to get your customers to climb to the top of that wall, but there's nothing for them to hold on to, right? But
Yeah.
if you're an imperfect, or let me not say imperfect, but if you're real and human and authentic and vulnerable about your successes and your failures, then there are holes. There are holes in the facade. But the holes in the facade are not necessarily a bad thing because it's the holes in the facade that allow people to grab on and
Grab
say,
onto,
yes,
yeah.
this, I can relate to this. And because of that, they climb up higher and higher and they get to the level that you want them to get to. You look at shows like Red Table Talk on Facebook. I don't know if you've ever heard about it.
No, I
So
don't.
Red Table Talk is one of the fastest growing shows on Facebook. It's by Jada Smith and Will Smith. So the actor and they're
And his
both
son.
actors,
Okay.
and his
Yeah.
son
Well, I
and his
mean, both
daughter
actors, but
and his
yeah.
mother-in-law, the entire family, right? And what they talk about during their red table talks is stuff that you would never expect a celebrity to be struggling with. They
Mm.
talk about weight struggles. They talk about depression. They talk about sex and relationships and gender and business and midlife crises. And so it's all these absolutely utterly human issues that we all deal with on a daily basis. But because nobody wants to put themselves out there, they don't talk about it, right? And these people, this family, they found so much success in talking about these things that we all go through. And that's why people can relate. And so I look at shows like this and I go, look, guys, if you want social media success, we can create the best content calendar on the planet for you.
Yeah.
We can schedule it 2 years in advance if you want. We can have stunning graphics. You can pay for the most expensive animations and videos. But if there is no humanity in your brand, you will get taken over by another one that does. Simple as that.
Simple as that. And in my conversation with Hermine as well for these mind talks, MindMeld talks, I also said, you know, because he's so authentic in what he does, and even on the social media as well, sometimes he does say, you know, it's like, I've had a really bad struggle with this and all kinds of things. Right? It makes him more relatable, I think, rather than just going like, you know, I did all this and it was such a smooth ride. You know, it's like, you can too, you know, pay me X amount of money. Right? So he says, like, you know, it's like, I felt so bad after eating this hamburger, right? After all these things because of her addictions. And it makes me want to value her more, I want to say, almost, you know, because I value more that she's not perfect, imperfectly perfect. You know, it's like, because it means that it's relatable. She's open, she's honest, and that relatability is what really counts. And that's what drives social media as well, I think, is that it's not just getting screamed at by ads, right? It's humans. And I think that's why I advocate for content marketing, right? It's not just ads. It's actually something that's personal, it's human, and it's relatable, and it's trying to solve a problem.
I would also say, so I did a talk recently where I was teaching a group of female entrepreneurs. So it's called Future Females. Right. And what I was telling them was that success on social media boils down to conversations over conversions. We all want conversions, but you need to have a conversation with your audience first, because it's the conversation that leads to the conversions. And another example I gave was that if you were talking to a friend, you wouldn't be shouting at them. You wouldn't go to someone and say, hey, I've got social media services. You should buy it now. Yeah. Right now. Buy 2, get 1 free. Now. Discount. Sale. You wouldn't do that. Why? They call the police on you. So why do you expect that constantly shouting at your audience with ads is going to get them to give you their money? It does not make any sense. If you're having a if you're being social on social media, that's the quickest way to get people to trust you. Yeah. You build that trust over time. And after a while, when you do decide to sell something, regardless of what it is, they trust the person behind the product.
Yeah. I tell people as well, if you give them value, they will give you money. But if you chase the money, you'll get no value, right? And it's one of those important lessons that you have to learn, especially when you're young and you're just starting out, right? And you're all in it for the money rather than for the experience of providing a solution to people and being real. Yes. And that's why I see a lot of businesses fail as well, is these horrible ads. One, they didn't even think about when they built the ads, right? Actually, who's this ad targeting? What do I want out of this? Right? Also on the radio. Yeah, what, you know, it's like, what, even on the radio, this is prime example of it's a child talking to a mom, right? And the child's asking, what is something's ST, something, whatever, like that, something, employee solution, something. And the mom goes and starts talking like a product, right? So, it's human scheduling solutions. That's what this acronym means. And then it's like everything else was like way above what the question was, right? So it lost me because they didn't even think how they were actually structuring this ad. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but it's like, what is this? And it's like, it's a child's voice asking a very easy question. And then they give me the answer, which is corporate talk, right? Which is inauthentic. And it's like, corporate speak, you know, and it's like, you could just drop the child, right? Because then everything else would still make sense, because then it's just a
Makes
basic
sense, yeah.
ad, right? Just a basic ad. But if you had a child, why didn't you just explain it like a child could understand, right? In as simple and as like plain English. We're talking now about using plain normal English, right? Rather than corporate talk. I would have believed that ad more, and I probably would have used them, right? But
Yeah.
because they tried to corporate talk me into basically sort of forcing me almost to buy into what they're selling, you know, drink the Kool-Aid sort of a thing. I just laughed and said, no thanks. You know, it's not for me. Because I want the human experience.
It's a big problem as well, especially with advertising agencies. And so what you notice is they put creative before strategy. Okay,
Right.
so they don't really have a solid insight because they don't invest in strategy and understanding human truths, and they put creative first. And so their focus is on, let's make a big flashy ad that's going to win us awards, but it's not effective in terms of solving people's problems and ultimately endearing them to the brand and building that long-term lifetime customer value that is going to be ultimately beneficial for the brand's long-term financial health. And so when you see an ad show up in your feed that is not relevant to you, is not solving any problem that you are having at the time, you know this is not somebody who actually cares about solving a problem. They just wanted to make an ad and put it out there for the sake of making an ad and putting it out there.
But speaking on ads, on radio now especially, since you've written radio, you know that they get paid for talking about something that's not like ad related. To basically, it's like an ad, but it's not an ad, right? It's not what you think is an ad, right? It's an ad because they're talking about it, right? So they're saying, oh, it's like, you know what I recently used was this product, and you know, it's like it's available at Spar or something like that. You know, it's like it's really, really good. You know, it's like I used it at this and this. Like I like that sort of stuff more. I know it's an ad, right?
Yes.
I know it's an ad, but I love it so much that I'm willing to buy it. Because one, my favorite personality on the radio is talking about it, right? So already, and two, it doesn't try and sell it to me. It's just basically two people talking directly. It is selling it to me. It's still an ad, right? They're still getting paid for the mention, right? But I love it more than just a direct ad. And I think maybe that's the way the future should be. Like even now with YouTubers especially, they've got product placements and all kinds of things and sponsored products built into the content that they're sharing. So it's not like stop, here's an ad for 20 seconds, then continue the rest.
Blends in well.
Yeah. And that's what I love more is I think that's the better way to do something. Because like all the stuff they use are brands and all kinds of things. You know, it's like we're using this product by Asus or this product that's sponsored by whatever, and they give you their honest opinion of it, right? Not in the form of a review, but actually using it. It's like, oh, it's a bit of a lag here. You know, it's like, oh no, if you're using this and it's like it's not going to matter, whatever. I know it's an ad, right? I know you're trying to sell it to me, but I appreciate that you're not talking down to me in a form of an ad.
It's part of the reason why so far I haven't really engaged in, like influencer marketing or any of that stuff, because I feel like what you're asking me to do is push your product regardless of whether or not it's beneficial to my audience.
Yeah.
And that's a mistake that a lot of influencers, so-called influencers and celebrities make, is you've spent years building up your audience, and now you're going to ruin that relationship you have with them by selling or pushing products that you have not tested yourself. You can't verify the authenticity of these products, but you're pushing it on your audience and expecting them to buy because they trust you. Ultimately, that is a betrayal of that trust.
It is.
And you forget that what you're getting paid for from the brands is that relationship with your audience.
Yeah.
So why would you ruin it?
Why would you compromise that? Like if you're a tech channel, why would you go and try and push KFC, right? You're a tech channel. That's what you do. If you're trying to sell tech, right, screens, laptops, whatever it may be, that still fits into what you're doing. But if you're saying it's
Yes.
like this pen, right? Oh, it's like,
Mm,
this is the best pen. It's like, it's like you should buy this pen by Bic or God name Parker, whatever other
mm,
brands they may be. It's like, it's
mm,
not what you do. So that comes
mm.
across as inauthentic to me. And
Inauthentic.
these,
There we go.
and these big influencers, like you say,
Mm,
when they try and manipulate the relationship, it it sours the taste of the channel, or the experience.
yes, it
And
absolutely does.
yeah,
Because it
and
looks out of place,
it
and it's like,
does.
come on,
Come on, man.
that's not
Yeah,
really your
it's
thing.
not
Come on.
you. Come on. So yeah, I think technology is a powerful tool, but it's all up to you now. Social media is up to you. Whereas in
Mm,
the past, you would pay a lot of money to a corporation that does ad media or something like that, ad marketing,
mm,
like let's say newspaper or radio station or something like that. But what you're paying for is not just the airtime, but also the creation of who's this ad for, who's going
mm,
to best benefit, and when is going to share it that's the best. But with social
mm,
media, if we just put up thousands of dollars to run
mm,
ads and we don't even know who we're targeting, who are we
mm.
actually trying to reach here? And then you come back to me and say, but social media doesn't work. Facebook marketing doesn't work. It's like, who did you target? Everybody. It's like,
It's
that's
it's it, I like to say there's a lot of aderia on social
Adaria.
media. So it's advertising diarrhea. It's aderia all the way
Adaria.
through, all day, every day. You see stuff across your feed and you go, why is this brand trying to sell me waist trainers?
Yeah.
I'm a guy. I don't wear waist trainers. What are you doing? But it shows up anyway, and it's just like, did anybody even bother to do their due diligence
Yeah.
with this advertising? Is there an actual strategy behind this campaign? Do you know what segments you're targeting? Did you list their interests properly? Did you check with the scheduling? Did anybody think,
Just think.
or did they just go, we need an ad on social media, we heard it works, and so we're going to put together a quick graphic, some nonsense copy, and a link to our website to go and buy
Yeah. Some lorem ipsum text, a stock photo. Let's run it. It's like, what
the
the
Lord
hell are you
sits on
doing? But that's what it looks to me. Because when I see
it.
ads that's got nothing to do with me, right? For
Mm,
example, there's this
mm,
one thing that keeps popping up on Facebook. It's called Wish or something, I think. Right? It's like,
Wish.
Wish.
Oh, I
It's like,
hate.
what the hell are you doing in my feed?
I
It's like,
hate that.
and it's like, how do I keep getting rid of this? Because it seems to bypass the ad blockers as well. It's like, the hell, I don't care about pink socks. I don't care about whatever. It's like female pads or whatever. It's like, this is not for me. This has nothing to do with my interests.
It's like an advertising STD. That's
It
what it
is.
is.
That's what it is. I love that. That's exactly what it is.
It's advertising herpes. It just keeps
It's
popping up no
just
matter
keeps
what you try
popping
to
up,
do.
and it's like, why? And I so hate seeing that white logo and the blue background popping up in my feed. It's like, oh God, I can't scroll past fast enough. It's like, they really need to cool it, man.
Oh, yeah, no, they're terrible. They're terrible.
So yeah, I think. Do you see things changing in the future for social media use in a developing country? Do you see it
I
becoming more
absolutely do.
relevant?
Yes. So I think it boils down at the end of the day to I want to say consumer education, but in this case, the consumer is the advertiser, right? So
Yeah.
the platform is selling, well, the ad space, and the brand is the consumer, is the client in this case. And so as time goes on, and this was what happened as well with internet marketing. So before it was digital marketing, it was internet marketing, way back in the early days. And there was some atrocious, absolutely atrocious things people were doing to try and get clicks. There was all sorts of black hat SEO tactics that were being employed. There were entire forums dedicated to that stuff. And so over time, the trash filters itself out, and the successful strategies, they rise to the top, and everybody emulates that. So the best practice. And that's why I say right now, when you look at social media, especially in developing countries, a lot of stuff just doesn't make sense. It's not working, but that's because people are only just getting into the game.
Yeah.
And so 10 years from now, it will have matured to the point where people know what the do's and don'ts of social media advertising are.
But that's why companies like yours exist, to help them along, to speed things up, to make it more useful, more relevant to what you're already doing.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
think, like I said, I don't think radio is probably not going to go away, right? There's still going to
Mhm.
be radio, there's still going to be TV for a long time coming. But
Yes,
things are
definitely.
becoming, I know like you said, the buzzword now is the fourth industrial revolution, but I like
Mm,
to think of it more as a digital revolution, right?
mm,
Because it's not industrial really in its form, it's
mm.
digital. Things are going
Yes.
online more. So it's a
Mm,
technological tsunami that we're basically being hit with. And you can either
mm,
see this as a technological tool or a technological terror, right? But how you
mm.
perceive it is how you're going to be able to use it. And I
Yes.
do think that we need to be aware that you are speaking on a global stage. Basically, every time you post something on
Mm,
Facebook, every time you speak on YouTube or
absolutely.
something, it reaches a global audience, and at least it has the potential to. Anybody, anywhere around the world can can watch it. And I just don't see that as well because I do think that maybe radio stations and TV can have this sort of discussion of how can we be more relevant while maintaining what
Mm,
we have but expanding to use social media. Like a lot of times I see people just posting, uh, just live streaming their radio interview,
mm.
right? And I
I
watch
do
it.
that.
I watch
Yeah.
it. You know, it's I love radio. I don't want it to go away,
Mm,
but I do think now that in a developing world, we need to build ourselves into becoming more global. And
mm.
we have the technological tools to do that.
Recognize that you're playing on a global stage. I mean,
Yeah.
even this very interview, I know probably 5 years from now, it's still going to be sitting on
It's
YouTube
still
somewhere,
sitting there,
and
yeah.
someone is going to pull it up, and they're gonna listen to these words. And so, because of that, it forces brands to be a little bit more conscious. So note I don't say careful
Mm.
because I don't want brands to be scared of taking risks and making mistakes because that's part of the journey, right? And you can talk about that. So when you make a mistake as a brand, that's content you can talk about and say,
Yeah.
hey, we tried it out, it didn't work out. Here's why, here's what we learned, here's the way forward. So, but it does force people, individuals, and brands to be a little bit more conscious about what they put out there and ensure that it speaks to who they are as individuals and as brands. So the concept of authenticity
Yeah.
again, it will come back over and over for the next decade at least, because right now humanity is at a premium. And if you can be human as a brand, if you can humanize your brand and connect with people like people and be social on social media, you're going to stand out far ahead of the competition.
Mm. I
Keep
think
it
that's a
real.
great way to end this off, to be social on social media. I think that's the core message here. If you're doing
Definitely.
ads, if you're running events, whatever you're doing, social
Mm,
media is designed to be social. Interact
mm,
with people digitally,
mm, mm,
physically, whatever it is, but show the interaction. Be human first. Show that you
mm.
are authentic. Show the holes in your facade, right? And I
Yes.
think people will appreciate it more because, as I told Ramin as well, even if you do fall, you've shown that you are authentic. So people will help
Yes.
you up.
Yes. Absolutely.
But if you say it's like
Absolutely.
I'm this king,
Conversation.
I'm this titan, right? And as soon as you fall, then we
I'm
laugh.
perfect.
It's like,
Yeah.
hey, haha, look at you. Which is why I take such great joy in my enemies falling, because they think they're so perfect and so wonderful. And when they fall because
Schadenfreude.
of it is, right? It is. But when I see someone who was getting ahead and they've been authentic and they've shown that they are vulnerable and then they
Mm,
fall up, I want
mm,
to rush and I want to help.
mm, mm. And because you've been a part of the journey so far,
Yes.
you are happy when you see them at the destination because they took you along with it.
Yeah.
But if someone shows up and they give this image of perfection, I've attained the great zenith of
Yeah.
nirvana. It's hard for you to care, because it's like,
I.e.,
well, I don't know
wish.
what's
Yeah.
out there. Yeah.
Yeah, basically that's what wish is now. It's like it's like I don't care about you.
Adaria,
Anaria!
SPG.
Yeah. So if you are watching this on YouTube or listening to a clip on SoundCloud or Podbean or whatever it may be, what are your thoughts on social media in a developing world? Do you think it's going some places? Do you think you're using it correctly? If not, why not? If yes, why yes? Connect with Mo, and I'm sure he'll be able to help you along if you think you need some extra boost to help you become more social on social media. With this has been a MindMeld interview, and I thank Mohammed Shehu for his thoughts, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.
Thanks for having me, Brandt. Peace.